So with our handsome Mr. Z, ready Zeus? I know we were discussing a little bit with helping him with like proper hellos or meets and greets with family members or friends, and discussing a little bit of how to build in some of those situations with even family members that live in the home more often than out of the home. So when it comes to your handsome guy, I know we discussed movement behaviors, but then also if let's say he was feeling much more comfortable and we were starting to work on other skills, having a place or a target could be very beneficial. It could be one of those things too where you can start to condition, for example, let's say knocking at the door with going to your target. If, of course, this is really challenging in the beginning, we wouldn't wait until the moment your family member or your spouse or let's say your company's coming to then try to work the skill. But let's say, for example, we're first going to warm up with just going to our place, working our stays, building a little bit of distraction or distances and duration. And then we're going to try working a little bit where maybe I go and play with the door. I might step in and out, see if you can handle holding back as I'm adding more difficulty. So we might, again, get him up onto his bed. Nice. I'm going to just feed him for going on the target. So when first starting going to a place or a target, be it a dog bed, a blanket, a carpet, it's whatever sort of spot works well for you guys and your household. I find for some pups, they do really well with a nice visual. So having those items as a target, really helpful. So let's say again, Mr. Z is on his spot. I have not applied my stay yet. I am simply just feeding him for existing on this target. So I like to typically, when building up a place behavior, is build in a lot of value in being on the target, not for getting off of it. So for some folks, they've done stays as in stay there to like come to get you and then stay there to like call you. I feel that's a bit confusing because at some points the dog is correct for moving and other times they're not correct for moving. So with my guys and with students, I recommend to have stay be stay there until you go and retrieve that dog from their position. With wait, that would again have a different exercise or sort of different flow to it. Wait is hold back until I call you to me or release you to go grab something or whatever it might be. So wait is being reinforced for the movement. Stay is being reinforced for being stationary. So I think of stay almost like freeze tag with room service or stay, for safety or statue stay. So right now I might go ahead and tell him to stay. I'm going to add a little bit of wiggles. And again, if this was really hard for your babes in the beginning, you may simply be right in front of your pup and feed several shorter reps between each little moment where they're stationary. So I normally would tend to feed several goodies because I'm building up value in being stuck. So while Mr. Z is in his spot, he dropped his snack, while he's in his spot, I'm going ahead and I'm feeding him several snacks for being in that position. If let's say I fed him for leaving the spot, then leaving might have more value than ever staying still. And for most teenagers, they find that being stationary may be the silliest or dumbest idea ever. So we want to build in value that being planted on something is not scary. It's not threatening. I'm not telling him to go to his bed after he's been annoying from our perspective. But I'd go ahead and have him go to his target and practice throughout the day. Maybe you're loading the dishwasher. Maybe his sibling dog's going to walk past him and you're practicing having him hold back with something he would normally have a harder time with. Because remember, if he can't do some of these skills with just family members or just his sibling dog, he's not going to do well in the real world as those distractions are typically much, much harder. Sorry for my tickle. So let's say again, I'm just going to go over, make some noises, do a little bit with distraction wise, and then again, feed this handsome guy for staying in the spot. You can also sometimes jackpot, which again, jackpot is one snack after another. So that way your pup starts to feel there's a lot of great value in this behavior. He's like, lady, I swear you dropped one. Not really, you ate it up. So again, a couple extras. And you only let's try again. You only say your stay cue once. So if my puppy had to listen to me saying stay 13 times as I'm walking around the living room, then that dog may think that the only time to stay is when you're actually reminding them to do so. So I like to just say the cue word once. So again, this would be the stay. And then I would only, again, repeat it if he got up and broke from his position. So right now, Mr. Handsome is doing a really nice job holding his stay. I might go, and I don't care if the pups adjust a little bit, maybe they wiggle, they get a little bit more comfortable, they, adjust their position. The main goal is he's still rocking, a lovely down stay. If he got up, I'm not going to get mad at him. I'm not going to scold him. I'm not going to go like, with like a spooky sound. I would just go and then replace the babe back onto his target, and I would try again. If we go into working place behaviors and we pair them with things that are too overwhelming or too stimulating, your babe may constantly fail at doing the place, but then also we may start to pair things they find really challenging with doing this behavior. And then the place behavior might either become really stressful on its own because it's been paired with those hard situations, or place becomes the bringer of those spooky things or too exciting things. So like for him, he gets really excited when company comes to visit. So it's not that it's scary, it's more that it's way too exciting from his perspective. So holding the stay position on his dog bed might mean, oh my gosh, grandma's coming, and then might start to actually rev the engine. He might get a little bit more wild. The other option too is, I'm going to be out of camera range for just 1 second, is you could pair, for example, let's say going to your dog bed or your spot, and he's got his little toy where it's got a couple snacks in it, but I'm going to plop in a few extra of his little things that he enjoys. You could also pair your relaxation or going to your bed with, let's say, for example, one of their dog toys or licks or chews. He's like, oh my gosh, it's rolling into my tummy. And of course, it's rolling around, which no worries if he adjusts. So, but let's say he is still on his target bed and grabbing some of those goodies. He says this one's maybe a little more challenging because it flops around. Here we go, Sarah. So maybe one, I'll put it onto the top of the corner here of the bed. Here we go. That way he can kind of lick at it versus rolling under his tummy. So let's say, for example, you could sometimes pair going to your spot and maybe you're doing loading the dishwasher. And you could, let's say, for example, your dog is on their mat, they're working a bit with their place, you fed them a few snacks for a few great reps. Then you might go, you again do one of the dishwasher moments where you load up something, and then you go back to your babe and feed them for being on their mat. So again, we're not reiterating the stay, only if he were to break, and then I would reset him up. So if, let's say, he's like, oh my gosh, he smells one of the cookies that rolled under his tummy. So if, let's say, if, let's say, he had to find his little crumb, no big deal. Like, let's say my puppy got up. Ready? We might get him back into, don't fall off the bed. I know you've gotten so big. So we might get him back into a lovely down position. I'm going to feed for that, reset up. I would reapply, ready, Zeus? Stay. Reapply my stay. If, let's say, he broke again, this could be your babe saying, I don't understand. I need more help. I'm a little bit confused. Or maybe I'm just not feeling it. So since training comes from both ends, we have to help also educate. But if, let's say, the learner doesn't quite feel comfortable to learn at the time, then the teacher must have to take a little breather, either reevaluate the setup or maybe give the student a break. So if you're finding he's being unsuccessful or just doesn't grasp something, maybe he's going through another growth spurt, or maybe he's a little sore, whatever it might be. So there may be plenty of moments where our pups or even adult dogs cannot complete a task or offer a behavior. View that as a window into how maybe they're feeling for the day. And then gauge throughout the week, how successful have we been? Have we maybe rushed the steps? Does the dog actually understand what we're asking? And then from there, are we starting to see change and more resilience? Nice. So, but let's say Mr. Z held this lovely down for a while, and I want him to be all done with it. You would want to pick a slogan. Seltzer, I'm so sorry. And we want to pick a slogan, so like all done, free time, release, all set. I normally recommend stay away from okay, because we tend to then replace okay with a recall. So like, for example, the puppy might be doing a waiting position. You say okay, they get released. Maybe they're doing a stay. They say okay, they get released. The problem with that is sometimes an okay starts to replace a lot of different skills. And maybe the next time you actually want your dog to come to you with a recall, but you've been releasing them with the word okay. So now recalls have been replaced with the word okay versus come when called. So I would just try to be consistent and think of what slogans make sense for you and your household, and then keep it sort of the same so that way the dog doesn't get as confused having multiple slogans for one skill. So let's say, again, we might get them to have one more little tidbit for rocking this beautiful stay. I'm going to say all done. If your puppy prefers some touches, you can. If they don't like being touched, you don't have to add touch. But let's say again, we did all done. I might pat this handsome guy. He says, that sounds lovely. Oh my goodness, melting. And then we might get him up. Ready? So we get him up and wiggling. Zeus. He's like, oh, now I'm kind of interested. So I would get him up and wiggling, but there's no food for breaking from the stay. So let's say again, I'm going to ask him to go to his bed. He's like, oh, this is very nice and smelly. Lots of other cabooses have been there. We might get a little sit. I'm going to get, oh, he's like, would you like a high five? Nice. We're going to get this gorgeous down. So now again, I'm going to tell him to stay. I do normally recommend to wait for your babes to eventually do the like little hip moment. That means he's a little bit more relaxed than almost ready to pop out of his down. This doesn't mean to force it. So I'm not saying like, oh, your dog's not laying down on a hip, push them to it. Let him kind of get into it on his own. But it's a great little moment to say, okay, he's feeling much more comfortable. He's on his side, on his hip. So he is feeling more relaxed. So right here, I might go, Zeus. He's like, oh my gosh, yes. I'm just going to feed him for that lovely name recognition. I'm going to tell him to stay, just in case if you didn't really notice me blabbing at him earlier. And now as we're working, I might practice. So notice how like now from a different angle, it might be kind of like starting again. So you may find as you're trying to generalize skills, it may not go from, okay, I practiced this one way this last time, and now magically you're going to try to add, okay, moving to my car and coming back and see if he holds a sit stay in the yard. So it is nice to graduate and build up to skills, but remember that advanced skills are simply basic skills that have been mastered and refined. So for example, a really beautiful stay that can happen anywhere is still a stay that started off in the elementary stages, but then we build up. So ready right here, we maybe lost him for a moment. He might be getting tired. Ready, Zeus? We're going to go bring him back to his bed. So for planting on his bed, I might go ahead and feed him for that because I don't want him to think there's no effort, well done on his end. So again, down, and we're going to feed for that. And later, as he gets much more refined, you're not going to feed for every little moment. You might intermittently feed for things. But for right now, if we're still building on us staying consistent in the skills, but then adding in difficulty, distractions, or distances, I don't want to make my end change as well to make it more confusing. So I'm going to tell him to stay. And let's say, again, we're going to add a little bit of movement. Maybe I go and I wiggle the door a little bit, and then I go back and feed him. So this could be where you might be adding sounds. So I know I've mentioned like there's the Spotify playlist, and that, for example, there's dog desensitization playlists. I am not saying to, if your dog loses their marbles over a ding dong from like a doorbell, that you play that while your dog is melting into a puddle or exploding. But maybe there's a wind chime noise, or maybe there's some other noise that's novel, but doesn't instantly equal overwhelming, scary, or frustrating. Then you start to pair that noise with fun things they enjoy doing, be it puzzle toys, find-its, different things that he feels safe rocking. And then from here, I'm going to feed him again. And I'm going to try again with one more little moment where I might open and close potentially a little bit with the latch and see if we can get a little bit. So notice how that got a little harder. So you will start to notice when things become easier and attainable, and when things become too challenging and maybe a little too overwhelming. I'm just trying to break up his little sausage snacks. Even though he does enjoy them whole, I want to try to use, as many little tidbits from one as I can. So again, I'm going to tell him once more to stay. And if, let's say, that step was too difficult, I would lower the criteria and start again where we were successful. So you don't want to keep making training so hard that becomes unattainable. So if, let's say, this is his first little rodeo practicing this dynamic, maybe going and wiggling the latch was just too challenging. So again, we want to make sure that we are setting them up for success, but also if they are constantly not doing so hot, maybe we're going a little too quick or he doesn't understand the concept. So again, I've only told him to be stationary that one time with that first little setup. So right here, very nice job. And we'll go ahead and feed this handsome man. Nice. So throughout your stays, obviously down the road, it wouldn't be this many reps with so many snacks. It would be longer durations, bigger distances, maybe intermittent feeding throughout the stay, but it wouldn't be as much as we're doing now. Remember that all of these different skills have, again, a bank account, and we're trying to deposit as many good moments with these, again, reinforcements, which would be like his paycheck, into those accounts. So if, let's say, a stay, when noises happen, has never really been paid into, but stays in the kitchen with nothing happening he might think the only type of stay that is capable, I know we're getting tired, is the one that happens in the kitchen with nothing else happening. So your dog is not trying to be disrespectful, a jerk, disobedient. This concept that your dog is trying to, of course, outdo you. They're just doing whatever either makes them feel safe, whatever brings them a resource, or whatever gives them some sort of out. So if, let's say, staying on a bed while you are reaching for the door seems really challenging, your dog may find very little value in it. So we have to build value into these weird skills. He's like one of my boys. He's terrible at beds. His head is always falling off the bed. So with Mr. Z, this was a gorgeous first day back to doggy day school. He says he's going to take a nap because I'm obviously, very stimulating today. But he did such a good job for his first day. I know all the boys and girls came in a little excited this morning, but they really are getting into a very nice groove. So we'll give Mr. Z a little breather, and then we'll rotate through our beauties and see how the rest of the gang is doing for their practice. All right, one more little tidbit, and then we'll call it a day for Mr. Z. He's like, oh my gosh, my toy. Good job, Zeus.